Okay, so you and I are going to talk about emotional health, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure everyone knows exactly what that is. So what is emotional health, and why do you think it's so important?
No, I mean that's a great question to start with, Bill. It is really important that we have a working definition, and understand why it is so important for us and important for men, important for everybody. There's a number of different definitions that I think could work for emotional health. The one that I really like is this: being emotional health is being happy, self-confident, self-aware, and resilient, being able to control your emotions and behavior, and being able to handle life's inevitable challenges, build strong relationships, and lead productive, fulfilling lives. So I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but that's really, in essence, to me, what emotional health is and why it's so important. Really, definitely, and I always will come through a biblical perspective, is the Bible teaches us that we are triune beings. We are a spirit, we have a soul, we live in the body. Now, I think for many of us, we would understand the importance of, if we could call it, spiritual health. And we'd understand it's important that we're right with God. It's important that we understand we're taking care of ourselves spiritually. And I think most people would understand the importance of physical health. It's pretty common knowledge today, whether we do it the way we think we should or not, we get that concept. But what I found for a lot of people, and within Christian circles especially, there's not the same understanding of emotional health. And that really deals with the soul level. 3 John verse 2 says this: "Beloved, I pray that it may all go well with you, and you may be in good health as it goes well with your soul." And so what the scriptures are telling us there is that our soul being well is very connected to life going well. It's connected to our health. It's connected to so many different areas. The translation said, "You will prosper and be in health even as your soul prospers." And so what's happening for a lot of people is we want to prosper, we want to do well, we want to be in good health, but we're not paying attention to our soul. And so true health means that we are healthy in all three of these areas. We're healthy spiritually, we're healthy physically, but we're also healthy in our emotions and healthy in our soul. Because if we're not healthy there, it's going to drag everything else down anyways.
Yeah, that is so good, because I think a lot of people, when it comes to their emotions, think that they are just kind of these arbitrary reactions and that there's nothing that they can really do about it. I hear people say things, well, I'm just an angry person, I'm just a fearful person. And the Bible actually says, no, emotions are like the command center of the will and the intellect. And you have a responsibility to take care of that, because out of the heart, everything flows, right? And so, yeah, I think if there's someone watching and they're maybe struggling with an emotion or emotional well-being, their mood swings, whatever that is, have you found some practical tips or strategies for nurturing emotional health?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously we'll barely be scratching the surface here, but some initial places we can start to work in this area. And just to add to what you're saying, I think for a lot of people, and especially, again, men's health, referring to that, sometimes we've been taught in Christian circles that either emotions are bad or emotions should just be ignored. And it's just
Yes.
like, well, and especially if we're not feeling the way we think we should be
Right.
feeling. And that's just really not healthy. That's not the way to do it. God gave us emotions. God put that, as you said, it's the command center. And so here's some practical tips I found for nurturing emotional health. First and foremost, it's investing in your relationship with God. I found for me, that's the foundation and that's the center of being emotionally healthy, is everything comes back to him. Everything is drawn from him. And so if I'm taking time in the scriptures, taking time in prayer, taking time for quiet and solitude, taking time for personal private worship, public worship, it helps my emotional health. Secondly, is putting a priority on investing in yourself. We can use different language for this: self-care, self-investment. But again, a lot of times there's this wrong perspective that, I think it's a misunderstanding of denying yourself. And we understand there's a biblical truth of denying ourselves, taking our cross, following him. But denying ourselves does not mean running ourselves into the ground. Denying ourselves does not mean not paying attention to, the dashboard of our emotions and how we're doing. And so it's taking time to invest in ourselves, taking time to understand, what does this look like for me? Number three for emotional health is really put a priority on investing in the core relationships in our lives. If we're married, really investing in our marriage. If we're in a season of singleness in our life, still investing in real healthy relationships, because God's created us as relational beings. And when we have healthy relationships, and I'm not saying it's easy and it's always perfect, but when we have healthy relationships, it actually contributes to emotional health. But when we do not have health in our relationships, it is actually detrimental to our emotional health. And so that would be number three. Number four, there's this whole concept, which I mean could be an entire thing to itself, but just learning to take a personal Sabbath. We don't want to Sabbath in a legalistic way, but we take the principle of Sabbath and setting aside a day each week for rest, for enjoyment, for life. So that'd be a forethought, and maybe I'll just throw two more in here. When you've been hurt, making sure you're not just pushing past it, you're not just trying to ignore it or pray it away, and I use quotations for that because prayer is an important part of healing, but really getting healed. Because many people were emotionally unhealthy because there's a lot of unresolved things below the surface. And sometimes, sadly, as Christians, we cover it up with faith. We cover it up with activity and service or spiritually sounding language. We're actually just hurt. And we need to take time, and there's different avenues for that, for healing. And in really making sure we're doing it. And then last but not least, I'll say this. If you want to be emotionally healthy, I already kind of touched on relationships around us, but it's making sure we've got some outlets where we can talk things out. We've got outlets where we can have sounding boards, counselor, pastor, leader, some wise people in our lives where we're not trying to just deal with everything internally ourselves. We're not just trying to either, suppress it or just figure it out on our own, but we actually get to talk with people around us. And so, again, there's a lot in there, but those have been different things that I've seen for myself. And I've also seen with many people that I've pastored, worked with, mentored to help cultivate emotional health for them.
I love that. So just taking away from this conversation, I'm going, yeah, if you have an emotion in your life that you're not sure, pay attention to it. Come to God, ask him how to process it, and find his healing in your life. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for that. It was so helpful.
Yeah, no, for sure. Really glad to do it.